Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, Mac and I are gonna do a part 2 to our Q&A since you guys liked the first one so much. So we asked you for some questions on YouTube and also on Instagram. So we're gonna go through them and answer your questions. Okay, so I took screenshots of the questions that we're gonna answer, so we'll go through them one by one. Let's start with a question from Mac. What are your thoughts on the Springfield Hellcat?
My thoughts are, I wish we could get them in Massachusetts. Everything I've heard about it seems like I want to shoot it. We can't get them at the school. We don't have any at the school. Nobody I know owns one that I can borrow. We have these laws in Massachusetts called Massachusetts compliance laws, and they're a real pain in the butt about buying guns that, according to their ever-changing rules, don't fit their parameters of acceptable firearms. They're not mass compliant. So I'm sure the Hellcat is probably mass compliant. It just hasn't been deemed mass compliant. So unfortunately, we're in a holding pattern. That happens to us a lot. So I would love to shoot one. I think that everything I hear about, they look great. I just can't yet. So I have to be patient, and I got to go with what I can shoot.
What are your love languages? My main love language is physical touch and also quality time. And yours?
You know them better than me. So.
His number one love language is acts of service. If you don't know what those are, there's a book and also a quiz you can take. It's really helpful in knowing how your partner wants to receive love. What are your thoughts on storing a firearm in your vehicle when you have to enter a prohibited building / school / post office? Some people will state concealed is concealed and decide to carry anyway. Any ideas on how to store firearms in a vehicle safely?
Safely is the key question there. Now, each state is going to have their laws about transport and then storage. And like, for instance, in Massachusetts, there's storage laws and there's transport laws, and then there's kind of this gray area in between. So when you're transporting your weapon from point A to point B, it needs to be unloaded and in a locked container, or it needs to be under your direct control if it's loaded. But when you're storing it, and it's like your storage laws are generally considered like your at-home storage laws, it doesn't have to be unloaded, it can be loaded, but it either needs to be in a locked container or, and I might get this not verbatim, but it needs to be stored in such a manner where it's incapable of being fired by anyone who doesn't have right of access to the firearm. So that's like a legalese term. So what that says is you can have a loaded firearm in a lockbox, you can have a loaded firearm in a safe, you can have, it technically means you could have a loaded firearm with some form of lock on it, you know, like a trigger lock. Never a good idea. So safely, you know, is the key word to this. So in Massachusetts, the firearm would have to be unloaded and in a locked container if it was in your vehicle and you were leaving it. Here's the problem, and this has happened to many people I've known, is when you're messing around in your car with a loaded firearm, there's a large opportunity to screw up there. So you're in a rush, there's things going on, you don't want anyone to see you, so you're kind of keeping your hands down low. And you know, ideally speaking, you know, you don't want to be messing around with your gun. You don't want to be chambering around or taking rounds out of the chamber. There's room for you to pull that trigger by mistake and put a round through your floorboard or into your leg or into your foot. Things like that. Messing around with your gun is not a great idea in a car, but I guess if you had to do it, because you had to go somewhere and you wanted to be 100% legal, you need to unload that firearm and place it in a locked container. And again, state by state can be different. Our state, unloaded means there are no cartridges, there's no ammunition inside the firearm itself. So take the magazine out, magazine can remain fully loaded. Take the round out of the chamber, you can put all that in the same lockbox. As long as the bullets or the cartridges are not inside the firearm, you're good to go. And I've had people ask me this again, I'm sorry for the really long answer, but if you are a person that has to do this regularly, then there's two things that I don't generally recommend, but I might recommend if you ask me this question is, revolvers are great for this. You're way less likely to screw up with a revolver. And cartridges slide in and out. The only time they kind of, you have to use your ejection rod and push them out is when you fire them because of the expansion. So the load and unload super easy. Or you don't carry with around in the chamber. And then all you gotta do is ditch the mag, put it in the lockbox, you're good. When you come back, put the mag in, you're good. No playing with the slide, no putting around in the chamber, taking around out of the chamber. That's what I would recommend if that was your lifestyle where you had to do that regularly.
Other than guns and hunting, what other things do you guys do for fun? We really like to hike. We go fishing.
So it said other than guns, so all shooting sports are out of there.
Archery.
Is that a shooting sport?
I guess that falls into the hunting.
Let's see. What do we do for fun? I mean, I'd say that the hiking and we shoot archery in our own yard.
Sometimes we play chess.
We play chess. We do spend a lot of time with our dog. So
going on walks.
And then we spend a lot of time with the kids. So
yeah, family
just
stuff.
Being a family.
Eating. We like to eat. What kind of trigger guard do you use when wearing your can thigh holster?
I think that one's for you.
So I don't use a trigger guard in my thigh holster. I recently did a video where I show you how to put a trigger guard in your belly band, and my thigh holster and my favorite belly band by Can Concealment are made by the same company, so you can put that same trigger guard inside the thigh holster if you wanted to. I usually wear my thigh holster where my gun is on the inside of my thigh, so there's nothing that can really get in there because it's pressed up against my other thigh. But if you wanted to, there's a way to put a trigger guard in there. You could do it the way I showed you with the belly band if you wanted to. This question's for me, but you can answer it too. Stav, do you have a lot of friends? Are you an introvert? I'm definitely an introvert. When I'm around a lot of people, it kind of drains me and I need to be alone for a little bit to recharge. I like being around people, but I'm definitely introverted. And I wouldn't say I have a lot of friends. I have some very close friends. I'd say like a handful of really close friends. He thinks I have a lot of friends.
With almost everything you said.
But I'd say I have like a handful of very close friends, most of whom
She has a lot of friends. They're close. She talks to regularly. We went to a wedding recently and her introvertedness didn't get off the dance floor the entire night, which means I was on the dance floor the entire night. Every group dance that happened, she was right in the middle of. I guess I don't know what an introvert is.
I'm an introvert.
You are a party animal.
I like to have a good time, but at the end of the day, I'm introverted. I need my alone time to recharge. What do you think about the 9mm 1911 for carry?
I mean, if you're a 1911 person and that's your primary firearm, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a 1911 person. I think that they are fantastic platforms. We own one. I carried one for a very short period of time when I was a SWAT operator, and during that time I carried a 3-inch 1911. It was 45, not 9mm, off duty, and it concealed great. The lines of a 1911 are great for concealment. Here's my only problem with a 1911, and I didn't realize it until I really started to go fast, and I was coming out of the holster fast and trying to hit targets. And this was the same with my full size on SWAT and my mini on off duties. When I'm coming out of the holster as fast as I can and I'm clicking off that safety on my draw and I'm pushing that gun out and I'm pushing the trigger, every once in a while I did not grip the firearm perfectly correct enough to disengage the grip safety. So I'm pushing the trigger and the gun's not going bang, because on the back of a 1911 it has a grip safety, which is a great feature as far as safety reasons go. It's not a great feature as far as self-defense reasons go, because it's another step where you can screw up. So even though the safety, the manual safety on a 1911 is extremely conducive to like very great operation on off, your thumb is in the perfect spot, the grip safety is another step that you have to make sure you're getting. So I came out of the holster on, I'd say, 2 occasions, and that's enough for me to make a change, where I wanted to shoot. And again, I'm shooting fast in these situations. I'm under pressure, I'm on the clock, I'm on a timer, and I'm coming out and I'm trying to shoot fast, and I didn't depress the grip safety enough, therefore the gun didn't fire. I had to change my grip or push harder and make it fire, which is like a microsecond, but it could mean your life in self-defense. So at the time I was carrying a duty weapon, which was a Glock 22, a SWAT weapon, which is a 1911, and an off-duty weapon, which is a 1911. And there was too much. There was too much variation under stress, under speed. I'm a huge advocate of sticking with one platform, and trying to keep like your primary home defense weapon, your primary carry weapon, your primary concealed weapon. If they're different, maybe your competition weapon. If they're all different, I like them to be different but the same, meaning
they operate the same.
if you carry a Glock off duty or you carry a Glock concealed carry, I want a Glock home defense weapon. I want a Glock competition weapon. I want you to carry Glock. Same thing if you're a Smith & Wesson M&P, which is kind of where we are, not necessarily 100% by choice, but that's what I have to carry at work. So the shield becomes a very natural substitute, and then you fell in love with the shield, and there you go. Sticking with one platform, but bouncing from platform to platform.
If you decide to have kids, at what age should they be introduced to guns and how? I have 2 small kids and have talked to them a little about safety, but I think it was not enough. Opinions about age and correct approach. I think this is a really good question. I get a lot of questions from moms especially asking about, they put this question in different words, but basically, I think it depends on the child and their level of maturity. You have to kind of gauge what they can and cannot handle. Some kids, I think, can be taken to the range at a young age where other kids aren't really there yet. But I think it's important to introduce safety as early as possible. So they even make books that are designed for kids. They're kids' books that focus on guns. What's that one called? I think it's called...
Summit Eagle.
No, not that one.
Oh.
It's called Guns, Tools...
Oh yeah, Julie Gollop.
Yeah. Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules. Is that what it's called?
That might be.
I think that's what it's called. And it's by Julie Gollop, who's a competitive shooter and a mom. And it's a really great book. I'll link it below so you guys can check it out. But that's like one way you can kind of introduce kids to the idea of certain things being toys and certain things being tools like guns, so that they can start to learn the difference between what's a toy and what's something that is a tool and can be potentially dangerous. And as far as like actually taking them to the range, that's gonna depend on the kid. Like Mac has 2 boys who will soon be my stepsons, and we've taken them to the range together. You have to keep a close eye on them and be with them the whole time, but you teach them about safety, and that's how they learn where the gun needs to be pointed and how to keep their finger off the trigger and all that. If you have anything to add to that, I think it depends on the child and their maturity level, but definitely start with safety as early as you can.
I mean, I think that if you carry a gun, then the potential for that gun to not necessarily fall into the kids' hands, but for the kids to be aware that there's guns in the house is extremely high. I mean, like
Yeah.
I can't come home from work and like have an empty duty holster. Like there's a gun on me. When I come home for dinner, if I'm working, there's a gun on me. Cat's out of the bag, and they know I carry a gun all the time off duty. So just saying to boys, especially, don't ever touch this, is like that's not going to work. Boys are so prone with every cartoon they watch and TV show and in movies and everything else. Guns are just a huge facet of Hollywood and American life. So you got to take that right down the middle and say, hey, listen, I got to teach you about this. And I tell you, I think that shooting a firearm or even hearing guns go off in real life is a big learning experience. Like they might it's a whole different ballgame when they're watching a movie star shoot, and when they put you basically from behind, you put a gun in their hand and they shoot it, and that bang goes off in front of them. Even if it's a 22, they instantly go, oh, this isn't a toy.
This is different.
My is Ryan 9?
Yeah.
My 9-year-old is, he can shoot a 9mm and a 38. Actually, I think I had him shooting a 357 Magnum, and he's like, no, it's too much recoil here. Or, he understands the noise, and so he has a much healthier respect for it because of he's shot targets and held that gun when it went bang, and he knows, and as far as I know, he's never screwed up. Like, he doesn't touch my gun.
No,
he respects it. So, and my other son is not as his personality is not quite as much, but he's shot too, and he knows not that they are not toys, and they make a loud noise and they have recoil, and don't touch that unless Daddy is allowing you to touch it, and we're gonna talk about it. So
yeah, the NRA has a program called the Eddie Eagle program, and it talks about the things you should talk to kids about and how to introduce them to this gun safety. And if you see a gun, get an adult and don't touch it. It has these rules that you should explain to your children to keep them safe if they ever come into contact with a gun. I think that it's definitely not a good idea to just ignore the topic altogether, because kids, they're curious. And if you say don't touch that and you don't explain why or what it is, they'll become more curious about it. So I don't think that's the proper approach. I think it's important to teach them safety as early as possible.
It's absolutely up to the individual parent and the kid, though. It's there's no rule. When they turn 12, you got to tell no. You got to. Every family is different. You have to make that decision for yourself. Okay,
relationship advice for guys. This question, I wish it had a little bit more to it, but do you have any sort of advice you can give your fellow men out there who are in relationships or want to be in a relationship?
There's a lot of advice I could give on this topic, I feel like. So let me see, what do you think the meat and potatoes is behind this question?
Maybe if you're in a relationship, how can you be a good partner, a good man?
You have to give it 100%. Don't half-ass it. Don't half-ass your life, truthfully. If I had to give advice, if people were asking me for advice, and I'm not necessarily...
Someone is.
I'm not, yeah, I guess because they're asking me, but like, don't half-ass your life. Like, if you have a job right now and you're not good at it, either get really good at it or change your job. Like, don't mope around and be the 10th worst employee at your business. Like, be good. Like, be good at everything you do. Whatever you choose to do, be great at it. If this question is, hey, you know, how do I meet more women or how do I get a girlfriend? Whatever your hobby is, whatever you do, like whatever your job is, be great at it. So it's like, if you're really good at whatever it is, doesn't matter. People will, they'll identify that. Your confidence will be high in that area. You know, if you're doing something you're great at, that's like a great time to meet someone. And then when you get in that relationship, it's not like an ancillary thing. It's not like, well, you know, this is my job and on the side I have a girlfriend. Like, no, like that's, if you want to have that type of relationship where you're like a really good relationship, you have to have you have to put that forward. Like you should
make an effort.
Yeah,
every day.
And if it's hard, if it's difficult to make an effort, then it's not that great a relationship. Because like being with you is as easy as pie. Like I want to be with you every single day. Like so, you know, whatever you choose in life, put your effort into it. And that does not mean be awesome at watching TV. I think it's a bad way to spend your time if you know everything on Netflix and you play video games all the time. Like, be great for the people that are around you, and if you don't have a lot of people around you, be great at things and people will naturally gravitate around you. I don't even know if I should be giving that advice. But if they asked, I give it.
They asked. Been fishing lately? Best wishes to you guys from Tejas.
We've been going almost every day on this vacation. We're not killing
right
it
now.
though.
No, we caught a few fish.
I'd say you're killing me though.
I'm doing a little bit better than you are, but just a little bit. You're a good teacher.
I think that you beat me in every species we've caught. So I think I'm losing. I'm 100% losing. I think I've lost. You caught bigger snapper, you caught bigger cats, you caught bigger ladyfish.
It's all luck. They come to me. I'm like Evan Almighty. Remember with the fishing? Back home, we haven't been fishing a ton. We've been fishing a little bit, as much as we can.
We've been having some boating trouble.
Yeah, so not as much.
That might be its own video later, but we'll see how it all works out.
We'd like. What is the best way to get into the firearms industry in terms of a side job, then transitioning into a full-time career? What does that look like? I'd say if getting into the firearms industry is your goal, just start doing the things that you like doing in the firearms industry. Like if you like selling guns, then go work at a gun shop. If you like talking about guns, maybe do something like this. Like I like teaching, but I'm also an introvert. So YouTube is like a great way for me to teach without having to be around a bunch of people all at once. So I'd say find what you like doing in that world and then just like meet people and doors will start to open for you. Get as much experience as you can because everyone starts somewhere. You have to start somewhere. Okay, thoughts on stun guns. I don't love them. I'll go first because I know you have thoughts too. I don't love them for a couple reasons. One, I don't love that there's like you have to charge it and it could die. I don't like that you have to depend on that type of technology. I had a stun gun that I'd used for classes that I taught just to show it, and it just died one day and didn't work. And if I needed to use it that day to defend myself, it wouldn't have worked. So that's one reason I don't like them. I also don't like how close you have to be to someone and like you have to have it up against them. So I have to be like close to you to use it. I don't like that. I'd rather use pepper spray. But you go ahead.
First off, a stun gun is nothing but localized pain. Because if you're watching TV and movies and someone stun guns someone else, it knocks them unconscious and you see it all the time. That's not real life. That's not how it works at all. All it does is hurts a lot where the gun is touching.
It makes a really loud noise.
That's it. So if you walked up to me and stun gunned me, and like I didn't know you, or like we weren't, I would probably like punch you in the face as hard as I could, or like push you away, like depending on who it is.
You'd have some sort of reaction.
There was going to be a reaction to that. Like, what are you doing stun gunning me? Like, ow, that hurt, whack. Like, get away from me. So if you're using it as a self-defense tool, just know that when you stun gun someone in the left arm, you're gonna eat that right hand. Like, it's not a viable self-defense tool for what most people consider to be self-defense. Where I think the stun gun is absolutely the best tool in this environment is if you carry a stun gun because you carry a gun, and the primary reason you're carrying a stun gun is to help defend your firearm from someone taken away from you, I'm on board. I'm 100% with you. I think it's great. I think it should be on your non-dominant side. Your gun's on your dominant side, the stun gun's on the other side. If you ever get into a wrestling match or someone is trying to physically disarm you, it's a great way to get them off you and create distance. Then you can draw your pepper spray or your gun, whatever the tool is. But you never want to depend on a stun gun as a primary self-defense weapon. It is not. It is a last ditch. I have to defend myself while in the clinch, while grappling, while someone's already got their hands on me and I need them to release me or I need them to not get my tool. That's the only realm that I think a stun gun is an acceptable self-defense tool. So you have to carry pepper spray and a gun as far as I'm concerned, as far as real self-defense, because both of them give you distance and both of them can do great, great things. The stun gun is just localized pain right in the spot you're electrocuting them essentially, and then the second you're no longer hitting them with the button, they're fine. They're totally fine, and they're 100% capable of still hurting you and probably more eager to hurt you. So just know what the weapon is and know how the tool works. I think a lot of people don't really understand what's going on there. It's not a taser, that's a different ballgame, and it's not a Hollywood mythical weapon where you did it and you're unconscious and now I tie you up and and the next scene begins. Like, nope, it just hurts a lot right there.
What resources did you use for learning about the raw food diet for your puppy? So our dog is on a raw diet. You might not know that if you don't follow me on Instagram. If you don't, then you should. But we have a dog, she's 1.5 years old, and we feed her raw food. And
we're on vacation now, so every night she's like, I wonder where Mila is, what she's doing.
I miss her. So we started learning about the raw diet, I think through a YouTube video. That was like the first thing. We watched a YouTube video talking about the raw diet. We both thought it was really interesting. And then I started doing research. I found some websites that I can link below for you guys that are really helpful. And also a couple groups on Facebook where you can ask questions and you can see what other people are doing for raw food and get suggestions. So I'll link those down below. I think one of the biggest lessons that I can share with you is that in the beginning, it seems really complicated and overwhelming, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like when we first started feeding her raw, I would like sit in the kitchen for hours and just meal prep all her meals, and it took forever. And I was like, how am I gonna do this? But now it's just, it comes so easy. I used to weigh all her portions. I don't do that anymore. I can just kind of eyeball how much bone she needs, how much organ meat, and it just, the more you do it, the easier it comes. So if you want to start it, definitely do a lot of research. I'll include some links below, but it gets easier with time. So
can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Mila's my 4th dog, and she's probably the healthiest dog that I've ever had. Like, she's the first raw diet. Like, she has like no dog smell to her, no bad breath. Her feet smell like Fritos, which you love. Like,
which means that she's healthy.
It's a healthy thing. Like, she's got zero ear infections, zero dry skin. Like,
her teeth are great.
She's like perfect, and I've never had a dog that is so shiny and is so healthy, and his teeth look so perfectly white as this. And I think, like I've said to you many times, like I'm a raw diet man for life now. Every single dog I have from here on out is raw diet, because I'm amazed at the difference from her to every other dog I've ever owned.
We've seen too much to go back.
And that's, I've owned 4, but I've never not had a dog growing up too. So my mother has always had dogs. So I've never not owned a dog. And this is probably the healthiest dog ever. So it's something to be said about that.
How did you two meet?
Well, I remember it.
I don't. I'm just kidding. So I signed up for a gun class. It was my first live fire concealed carry class. I had taken like a lecture one before, And so I signed up for a live fire concealed carry class because I wanted to carry a gun, but I wanted to be able to actually be able to draw and shoot out of a holster. So I signed up for a class, and Mac was the instructor. And that's how we met. And the rest is history. Your thoughts on a magnet mount in the car?
I don't like them. I just don't think that they have the strength, if you get into an accident, to hold that gun from bouncing around the inside of your car. I really dislike the idea of a gun bouncing around the inside of your car during an accident. So
yeah, and then ending up who knows where.
Right. I like guns on people's bodies. That's ideally where I like them. If they have to go somewhere else, then I like them to be in locations that are guarded. Like, I don't like a gun bouncing around the center console that much either, but
no.
At least it ends up not going around. So I don't hate them, but it makes me uneasy. When do I rotate my carry ammunition? At least annually. And I would say rotate all of your life-saving devices annually in like regards to any batteries that are in any of your safes. So if you have a reaction safe where you beep beep and you get your gun, those get rotated. Whether you're getting lights blinking or anything, rotate those out every January 1st. If you have an optic on your firearm, rotate those batteries out every January 1st. If you have a flashlight or a laser sight on your weapon, even if you haven't been using it, like we're talking about life-saving devices here, like rotate those out. So, make sure that whatever you're betting your life on does not have a 0.25% battery life, does not have corrosion on it. Like if your everything that has batteries get rotated, your carry ammunition gets rotated, all that stuff.
Anything
so
that
at least
shelf life.
Yeah, at least annually I would shoot those rounds and replace them.
What was your guys' first jobs ever? How long did you do it? You can go first.
I was a paper boy.
He was a real paper boy.
Like on my bike and everything, yeah.
Just like in the movies.
Just like in the movies, yeah, I was a paper boy.
My first job was working at an insurance agency because my sister worked at one, and I think I was 14 or 15. So I was like in the back room doing all the filing, and I think I also answered the phones. And I think I did that for about a year. That was my first job. How long were you a paperboy for? Was it like years or a year?
Well, I was a busboy next, so.
How old were you when you were a paperboy?
14, 13, 14. So maybe that was until I was like 15 or 16, then I was a busboy at a breakfast restaurant. I don't know why you're laughing at me. I used to ride my bike to work.
Cute.
I had to bus tables.
Okay, question for Mac. In all of his years of experience, how many times has he heard of anyone using a one-handed manipulation to rack the slide? I always hear people talking about having a sight that is squared off in case of having to rack the slide one-handed. Never have I heard of it being done. Seems to me that most regular people, if they got shot, would be too busy freaking out and not racking their slide. Really want a real-world answer, please.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an answer, but it's going to be like a double answer. In the law enforcement world, single-hand operation is not totally rare. It does happen. I've seen many videos on it, and then, there was a lot of, law enforcement that occurred before all these badge cameras came out. So I know people that have had to like rack their slide one-handed. So as far as reloading one-handed, racking your slide, clearing malfunctions, doing everything one-handed as a law enforcement officer, yes, you need to know that skill. It's important. Transitioning to the concealed carry world, I can't think of one time I've ever heard of anyone needing to rack one-handed. So then again, I can't think of anyone reloading in the concealed carry world. Definitely killing a lot of concealed carry malfunction clear, but doing a speed reload or combat reload or a lockback reload, whatever you might want to call it, like, does that really happen in the civilian world? Not really. Does it happen in law enforcement military? Yes. So, but here's the thing, like, I started carrying a gun when I was 21. I'm 45. Other than when I'm working, I've never needed to draw a gun, and I carry all the time. So a lot of these skills, a lot of this entire, like what we're doing here, we hope none of you ever have to use anything we ever talk about. I hope you never have to draw. Like as someone who's pointed guns at people, it's not fun. It's not a good feeling. You don't want to shoot somebody, and you know, most of the time you're like, please don't make me shoot you. That's the military and the police world, both. If you're going to learn these skills, and these are life-saving skills, and you're saying, well, it's never going to happen, odds are you're never going to need that gun. So like, how far do you want to go? Like, it's totally up to everybody. But if you want to keep learning skills that you may or may not need someday, like, you know, I mean, every new skill you probably learn, the more advanced you get, the less likely you might actually need that skill. You know, if you can draw your gun with a two-hand grip and hit a chest-sized target at 20 feet, and you can do that in under 2 seconds all the time, you're great. You're probably all set for like 90+% of any civilian, you know, gun encounters. You know, does that mean that's where you stop? Because maybe if that's what you feel, then that's fine. Like, I can't argue with that. You're covering 90% of all engagements. But is there a time for one-handed operation? Yeah, I can show you videos of one-handed. You know, is there a time for a reload? I don't want to not be able to reload. Like, do you want to spend time clearing malfunctions? Yeah, I would say spend time clearing malfunctions. But I can tell you one more thing, and I'll try to keep it quick. As a trainer for law enforcement and civilian, there's many times where I'm the bad guy. So I'm in this scenario, I'm the bad guy. I'm going to attack you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And my left hand, because I'm right-handed, my forearm from the elbow down gets damaged all the time. When people are shooting simunitions at me, I come home and I got all sorts of welts all over me, but I always have a boatload of welts all up and down my hand. I've almost been, you know, dogs attack, you know, like you kind of stick your hand out, you know, when people try to hit you with something, you usually block it with your non-dominant hand. If someone's gonna try to stab you, odds are you're gonna block it with your non-dominant hand. So I believe it's a skill that everyone should know and should have a firearm that allows. That's just an opinion. You take it for where it is.
Wish to know your favorite concealed carry purse and why it is so. Thanks. I'm guessing this question's for me. My favorite concealed carry purse is made by Gun Totin' Mamas. I can't remember the exact name of this purse, but I will link it below and I'll show you it here. I've done videos that feature this purse. Mac attacked me in one video so we could see how fast I could draw from it, and I used that purse. But that's my favorite one. It has a zipper that opens at the top instead of the sides, which I like. It's also crossbody, and it's pretty small, but also can fit like a full-size gun in it. So it's easy to carry around without having like a huge bag on you. It's a good one. That's my favorite one. Your thoughts on frangible ammo, Liberty, Corbon, etc.? Very lightweight and high feet per second.
As far as feet per second and ultralight ammunition or frangible ammunition, I'm not a fan of it. And the reason why is because the idea of hydrostatic shock being a part of wound ballistics means basically you have to be shooting cartridges that are going over 2,200 feet per second, really 2,400 feet per second. So if you're looking for a bullet to do damage beyond the path that the actual bullet takes, then you have to have an insanely high velocity. And for the most part, we're not talking about velocities above 2,400 feet per second in a pistol cartridge, no matter how light the bullet is. So now what you're talking about is a very lightweight projectile going faster than average, but doesn't have the penetration. And what normally happens with those ultra lightweight bullets is they advertise based on muzzle energy or the energy of the round, and then they'll show you, like, you know, what it does when it's hitting like a gelatin block and all this hydrostatic shock and the gelatin block is jumping around. But gelatin blocks are not going to come and kill you tomorrow. So don't worry about what happens to a gelatin block. What we have to worry about is what happens to people. And people are not made out of gelatin. Gelatin blocks are a good measure because they're very consistent. So when you're trying to compare one bullet to the other, you can see a lot of comparisons. But human beings are not made out of gelatin. So don't think that what you see that happens in gelatin is going to automatically translate to what happens in a human being target. What you'll find is if you look at like the dominant self-defense rounds that are carried by huge agencies that do their own ballistic testings, what you're normally going to see, like let's just talk about the 9mm because that's the dominant cartridge. You're probably going to see 124 grain or higher, meaning the 124 to 150 grain world is where you're going to have all your federal agencies, all your major state agencies, all your like large city agencies, local agencies. That's where they're going to find everybody is carrying those bullets. We're going to a 147 grain 9mm from a 230 grain 45. and everybody I know is going to 124 grain or higher because that heavier bullet penetrates deeper, and what you need is the bullet to tear the tissue, which is what actually causes the hemorrhage, which actually causes the damage, which makes the bad guy stop. So all those super lightweight bullets, they're excellent marketing. They do a good job of kind of making you go, that looks pretty fantastic. Maybe I should switch to that. But what you'll find is during the actual like FBI testing, they can't do it. They don't perform well enough across the board, which is why you'll never see, in my opinion, you'll probably never see a major state, federal, or large city agency going to those bullets. Because if they were that great, somebody would go to them, but nobody ever does. So there's a hole in the reality somewhere, but they're hiding it through outstanding marketing. So sorry for another long-winded answer.
You just have so much information in this brain of yours. Thank you for everybody who left us a question. Unfortunately, we can't get to all of them because we have a lot of questions, but maybe we'll do a part 3 sometime. We hope you like this video. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Wait, we have to do a thumbnail.
Oh, that's all you though.
No, it's not. You're in it with me.
Oh.
This is our video. Get back here.